Thanks for joining us again. Back for a bit of a bumper episode, Jared. This one is a screener we received from Universal Pictures with regards to a film that has yet to be released here. It's called Come Play, and it was released in the US last year, but it has yet to be released in Australia. So we're gonna dive right into that, but we've got the section with regards to what we've been watching, but we've also got a new little segment that we're gonna roll out. So hang tight while we go through what we're watching, and then we'll cover off on that. So Jared, what have you been watching recently?
Short and sharp, mate. Most of my time has been spent on working through The Office. I've been going back and working my way through that. Other than that, I watched a little bit of TV. I watched a Netflix doco on the Malice in the Palace. Being a basketball fan, obviously that one grabbed my eye. It was pretty good. Pretty good. Most of this stuff we had heard, but they talked to quite a few players, including one of the Detroit fans, who's an absolute fucking dildo, comes out as the biggest dickhead in the whole piece. Whereas people like Ron, what's his name now? Meta Sandiford Artest.
What? Is that his fucking name now? It was Meta World Peace last time.
Yeah, no, so he's changed it back to Artest, but also took his wife's name. So it's Meta Sandiford Artest now, I believe. He actually comes across as, you actually feel some empathy for what the guy was going through, because he clearly, throughout his entire NBA career, had pretty hefty mental issues.
Yeah. And
he talks about how he was trying to deal with them, and then they bring up the fact that it's kind of got lost, but they bring up the fact, which was kind of amusing at the time, he actually asked for time off at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Because he was just not in a good place, not enjoying it. He actually wanted to file his retirement papers. So it's interesting to go back and see it from that angle. Like I remember actually watching the game. I was tuned into that game that day. And that team was bloody good. They were going to be very, very tough to beat. So it was a bit of a shame for some of the players involved. But yeah, pretty good doco.
Yeah, is it a full length doco, or is it
no? So it's an episodic thing. So I think it goes for just over an hour, and the second episode is actually out now. I think it's mostly revolving around sports stories. So.
Yeah.
The second episode is
looking forward to that. Actually.
Yeah, second episode is a female boxer that I'm not totally familiar with, but I think I'll check it out based on the first one. I watched the second part of Batman: The Long Halloween, which is the latest DC animated. They split that. It's a fairly famous sort of story arc. They split that into two. Pretty solid. They've made a habit of changing the twists or the familiar elements of some of these stories. Like this is a number of times they've done it now. So
you're not getting the same stuff that you already know.
No, so you're getting very familiar stories, very familiar scenes, but they throw a real curveball at you involving, The Long Halloween is essentially kind of a whodunit, like a murder mystery. So they throw some real curveballs at you while retaining some of the other elements that are, things that you're expecting. So yeah, I thought this was pretty enjoyable, pretty well done. Bit of a different animation style, but I always tend to enjoy these DC animated pictures. They do a pretty good job of those. The other one I went back to, Adam, is The Final Girls. They put it back on Netflix, and I'd been itching to watch it again, so I went back to that.
How was it on second view?
Yeah, look, I probably didn't like it as much this time around, but it's a really good concept. A really solid cast of players, like a lot of people that have probably gone on to be more famous. Well, not probably, have definitely gone on to be more famous since this was made. And generally, like the players are pretty strong. Like Taissa Farmiga is also a very good actress, much like her sister. So having those kind of pieces in place always helps. And it nails a couple of parts of it. Like there's some really strong parts around a couple of the characters. The ending's pretty nice. And Adam Devine I don't think I've ever found the bloke funnier. So I think he was
he's good in that.
He was the shining light of the piece. But yeah, it was interesting to go back to. And the last thing I watched, Adam, segueing into yours, is I told you about this a couple of weeks ago and told you get on it. And so the day that it dropped here in Australia, I jumped on Heels immediately.
Yes.
And
So
quite
do I.
enjoyed it. Obviously, Stephen Amell's got a bit of a history with the wrestling. He's showed up in a couple of promotions and done a couple of matches and things like that. So I feel like this is a really good show for him because he's got a bit of a history with it and probably has a little bit of knowledge of the inner workings. But yeah, so far so good. I think it's just a nice setting for a bit of a drama piece that we haven't really seen before. I mean, the things you're going to see are pretty familiar. You can see the sibling rivalry. You can see, a bit of the people that were in the town that have left the town or gone on to bigger things and all this sort of stuff. They're not necessarily things we haven't seen before, but I'm loving the fact that they're going to do it in this little wrestling promotion kind of setting.
Yeah, rather than doing it in like a big ticket promotion or, part of, that type of thing. I really liked it. I thought it was really, really well handled. And I really dug the small wrestling promotion environment.
Mm.
And I thought they did a really, really good job with it.
As I said to you, one of my favourite parts was Chris Bauer sort of channeling. He looked to be going a little bit of Jake the Snake Roberts with a little bit of Macho Man Randy Savage. I was loving it.
Yeah.
He's rocking around in leather pants and a big mustache.
Throw in the mustache, a little bit of Rick Rude. And Ricky Rude in there.
Yeah, I was loving his work.
Oh, sorry. Was his name Richard Rude? It was Rude with it spelt differently?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
A little bit like Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I enjoyed it a fucking heap. And I thought the ending was excellent. The ending of the first episode was really cool. Because I actually expected something different.
I think you'll find it was Richard Rude, but it was spelled R-O-O-D, Adam. So, I mean, that was a natural fit for him. Rick Rude. Loved it.
The guy changed his name from Rick Rude to Rick Rude. Jesus
Great
Christ. Good on you, Rick. Did you have anything else?
No, that was it, mate. Like I said, most of my time was on The Office. I was just punching out, most of the episodes are 20 minutes. So I was just knocking out episodes of The Office left and right.
And how's it going down so far?
Oh, it's awesome. It's such a good show.
I did about 4 seasons worth, and then I fell off it.
Yeah, well, I'm in the thick of season 4 at the moment. I'm towards the end of season 4, but yeah, it's just excellent. I mean, the players are so good. Michael Scott is just such a classic character. Like the fact that he never really learns any sort of sense of fucking humility or self-awareness or anything through the series is just hilarious. My second favourite character is actually Creed. I love Creed's input. Every time Creed's rocking up, he's always bloody stealing something or running a scam. Or there was it a Christmas episode where he gives Jim a shirt and Jim puts it on and kind of goes, it seems to me that Creed forgot that we were giving presents today, so he quickly pulled the shirt out of his cupboard and gave that as a present. Then they cut to Creed and he's there going, yep. That's exactly how it happened. It's just kind of, that sort of shit just tickles me. I'm absolutely loving his form.
I bet you did. All right, so I have a pretty extensive list. There was obviously a Friday the 13th this August.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched Friday the 13th Part 2 and Friday the 13th Part 8. Don't ask me why I watched Part 8.
Yeah, you've gone 50% strike rate there.
Yeah, I went champagne to shit, basically.
Yeah.
Look, and I'll say it again. Part 8 is fucking terrible. Like, it is. It would be right at the bottom. I think I may have put it at the bottom.
Yeah.
When we did our damn enchiladas, because it looks like a TV movie. It's fucking awful. And yet it was more higher budgeted than 90% of the other ones.
Mm.
I can't understand it. I think it might have something to do with the director. He came out of television, so there was very much that look. I watched one on Netflix that dropped, and I've been looking for it for ages, and I wasn't prepared to pay for it, Jared.
Mm.
It was called The Possession of Hannah Grace.
Mm-hmm.
and it was on Netflix, and it was a tidy little supernatural type of possession film.
Right.
I enjoyed it a lot, and it went for a very brisk 85 minutes. You know, it didn't overstay its welcome. And it's kind of like set in a morgue where this she used to be a cop, but she washed out of it and had drug problems, and it was her first job back. She was just doing morgue duty, taking in bodies and that. And then a body turns up that's sort of, she starts looking at it and investigating it a little bit and realises that it's not somebody that's recently died, basically. So, look, it turned out to be a pretty tidy little thriller. I would recommend.
Right, okay.
I will not recommend my next watch, which was The Doorman, which was on Stan.
I have heard a little about this.
Don't ask me why I looked at this. I have no idea. I was just wandering through Stan and I just saw it and thought, I wonder what this is like. It was shocking. Firstly, it's a woman, not a man, so Doorman is fucking, I don't know, obsolete, essentially. But it's basically like Die Hard. She's ex-military, she's come back from Afghanistan. She gets a job just as a doorman in an apartment building that's being kind of closed down. And then Jean Reno and his crew of goons turn up because there's supposedly some art in one of the rooms that is, quite priceless. And then, of course, she's loose in the building. Mm-hmm. And I believe I sent you a message when I watched this, Jared. And look, I know that this is a cheap knockoff, but it just fucking proves to make Die Hard as good as it is, you need everything to come together. You need all the right pieces in the right amount. Because this is just fucking crap. Just crap.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not even action sequences that you can hang your hat on a bit, Good Lord.
Yeah,
but
I don't
Jared,
think I'll be jumping.
I'd say to you, view it.
What's that? I've got to watch it.
I think a bloke like you should watch it.
No.
Your time's not precious, mate.
Well, my time is precious, but I still haven't figured out how to spend it correctly.
Now you're in lockdown, you can watch fucking anything. And not feel guilty about it.
Yeah, fair point. I'm not sure I'm going to watch it, though.
No, past that one, it was fucking awful. I watched the first episode of Cocaine Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
That doco on Netflix.
Yep.
Again, it was pretty good, but it just sort of felt like glorification of arseholes. Yeah, these guys were peddling fucking cocaine. They're not cool guys. They're fuckwits. But we'll sort of glorify them. They were sort of, they were outlaws, and they it's just I maybe I've gotten a bit over that shit of glorification of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I remember the first two of those.
Yeah, they were better because they were singular docos.
Yeah, I felt they weren't too bad, but yeah, you're right. It's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to know about who these guys were. They were fucking creams. I got back to Walker, Jared.
Of course you did. It was never in doubt.
Episodes 10 and 11. Just remind me why I'm watching it again.
Well, because you just can't look away, mate. You just can't look away from what they're sort of putting together. It's a crowd favourite.
Yeah. Maybe I'm a Padalecki fan.
I think you are. I think you like the balance that he brings to the piece. You're looking. He's simmering with rage, but he's still also able to, be a doting father when he needs to.
And smoulder when he has to.
That's right.
Is that what you reckon?
Yeah,
you reckon I'm a Padalecki completist?
I think you are. Look, in all seriousness, the guy's a likeable lead in the series.
Yes. Yeah.
But the series as a whole, it does stink a little bit of that CW formula. And there's sometimes the subplots and whatever are like not interesting. I don't want to know about his daughter's high school soccer career. I don't give a shit about that. I don't mind the family dynamics, but I can do without the soccer.
Yeah. I can also probably look. I don't like to say this because I like you. I like Padalecki, and I think he's likable, and I think the show kind of probably has a bit more mileage. If it was someone else who was less charismatic, you'd probably have bigger problems selling it, right? And I don't mind the rest of the cast, to be honest.
Yeah.
I actually think the brother is fine. I actually like his partner.
Yep.
And the dynamic she's got with her boyfriend. I don't know. I can't remember the girl's name who played the bar lady.
Yeah.
Who was friends. She's also pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's good actors. Mitch Pileggi is obviously there. So there's good actors. The problem that I've got is not much happens in these 2 episodes I've just watched. And, you know, you knew what you were getting from Norris. You know, the moment someone spoke out of turn, they got the fucking shit kicked out of them.
Yeah, I need a little bit of that. I need Walker to start firing up occasionally.
Yeah.
We can have the family drama, but at the end of the day, there's still some shady players in the background that have to be dealt with, and I think Walker's the man to do it.
Correct. I mean, you look sideways at Norris and you get a swift kick in the balls.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he'd do it even if
what you were getting.
Even if you thought you were about to look sideways, he'd do it, and then if you said, "What did you do that for?" he'd quickly apologise, and we'd move on. But no, we're not getting any of that.
Yeah, that's right. He was a strike first and then apologised later. But nine times out of 10, he was correct. No, you were a scumbag. Okay, so look, I'm sticking with Walker. I've decided I'll get back on it while I'm in lockdown. So expect more Walker updates.
And just, on a side note, I think I mentioned this to you, but my parents needed a little bit of assistance technologically when they changed their TV over, so I had to come in and put all their Netflix and Stan and everything back on it. I was signed into Stan, and bugger me if there's not 15 episodes of Walker having been watched. I said, who's been watching this? And my mum turns around and goes, "Oh, Walker, I love that show." Right,
Did you say to her? There's 150 episodes of Chuck Norris on there as well?
No, I just turned around and said, "Of course you do. Everyone loves Walker."
I finally got onto some Joe Bob, Jared. After hearing your thoughts on him. So I actually watched one that was the full package. It was him and the film all sort of done up together.
Mm-hmm.
And the film was Hack-A-Lantern.
Good choice.
Shit, I can't even say that shit without laughing. I mean, this movie was inept in all facets. But Joe Bob coming in and giving us a little bit of background, it just kind of, you understood why it was inept.
Yeah.
The director was an Indian. He didn't speak much English. One of the actors said he basically couldn't. He said because he couldn't understand the director, he wasn't sure if he was a devil worshipper or a hero.
Excellent.
I can tell you, he was a fucking devil worshipper. No doubt about it.
And this is what you get. This is what you get from Joe Bob. He balances, like, his little rants are usually very funny, but then he also goes very deep in figuring out who's who, where you've seen these actors before, how it all came together, which definitely adds to the whole experience.
Definitely. If Joe Bob hadn't been on it, I would have turned it off after 10 minutes. Actually, sorry, after the first 2 minutes where an old creepy grandpa talks to a little boy, I was like, oh, fuck, what am I watching?
I haven't watched that one yet, so I better get straight on it.
I forced my way through it. And I finished the week with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I watched that off binge.
Yep.
Look, that was pretty handy.
Yeah, I've actually got the Blu-ray sitting there waiting to be watched, and I haven't knocked it over yet.
Yeah, look, it was pretty good. It ran a little long, but it did have that vibe of, because it was set in the 1960s, and it kind of felt like anthology, even though it wasn't.
Mm.
It just kind of had that anthology feel of something like Creepshow. And for the most part, look, I wouldn't say it was like stress poo inducing, scare wise. more just a loud fart. So, yeah, but it was pretty good all round.
Mm.
And I think it was directed by the same bloke who directed The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yes.
Which was another one that I really liked.
Yeah, that was good, actually.
Yeah, so definitely worth your time. Check out.
What's his name? Andre Overdale, is that him?
That's correct, yep. And the last one, Jared, I went back to one that I said that I hated, and I reappraise, which is sort of what we'll be doing in the next segment.
Yes, of course.
I watched Black Christmas.
The remake.
Black Christmas,
the latest
2018.
remake.
Yes.
Yep.
I applaud the ideas, and I applaud where they were going with it. And I'm a big fan of Imogen Poots.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and the rest of the cast is really good. But it's just once you get to the ending, I couldn't swallow it. It once again, it just made me think, if you would have gone down a straight down the line slasher with the overtures of what they had, the whole frat boy rape culture and all that stuff, it still would have been a really, I think, an interesting slasher.
Mm.
But to trot out that shit at the end, I was just like, fuck. And Carey Ells, he is getting worse as an actor. He is.
Oh, dear.
He's just... You know that he's dicey from the minute he comes on screen.
Yeah.
I believe he plays a villain in Kiss the Girls as well. And I remember watching that, and the moment he came on screen, I was like, something's up with him.
Yeah, I think
bugging me, yes it was.
I've got to go back and have another look at that, but I think you pretty much nailed it. There was certainly things I liked about it, but there was a couple of parts that missed the mark completely. And I think the biggest issue for me, or one of the biggest issues, was there was just the kills were, I don't know what happened, but it was like watching a TV movie or something where they couldn't show any sort of violence at all.
Yeah, they pared it back, but I still think it would have been a really interesting film, even if it had been a straight down the line slasher. And in fact, you could have played out something really interesting as to who did it and their motivations.
Mm.
But the idea that the fucking frat bloody possesses you, or some bullshit that's coming out of some bust. Come on.
It was very over the top, saying this is a toxic culture, basically. It's just, this has been fucking passed down for generations, and you could see that that's what they were going for. But yeah, you're probably right. It didn't really hit the mark completely.
The interesting thing was they'd already established the toxic culture. They'd already proved that sort of culture is toxic.
Yeah.
And they'd done it reasonably efficiently in the early phase of the film. They'd efficiently sort of explained that these guys, they do this shit, they do these fucking terrible things out of sort of like a sense of entitlement.
Mm.
And I really thought that was interesting, and there was a couple of really interesting dialogue exchanges that I found, especially the one where one of the blokes, actually the bloke who's in their group, actually fires up and starts saying, we're not all like them, I'm not a fucking rapist, and then they have an argument about that, and I thought that was intriguing stuff.
Mm.
It was worth pursuing. But then you've got fucking 5 different killers who are all fucking possessed. Well, what are you doing?
Mm. Yeah,
So
I get the
there was
message. I get the message that they were going for, and like you said, I thought the idea was I'm very open to interesting ideas like that being played out, and as we spoke about at the time, Blumhouse is noted for that. They're going to try those things, but this one certainly didn't quite hit the mark as they wanted to, even though the messages were pretty clear. And I feel like, same as you, I feel like, yeah, that's worthwhile exploring, but it just didn't quite land.
Yeah, and the good thing too was it was being explored by, it was a female director, a female screenwriter.
Yeah,
it was being explored in the right way, not a couple of males who are trying to shape it in this format. So they had everything in the right place for me. And for a while there, for about 40 minutes, I'm thinking, look, it's actually a lot better than I thought.
Yeah.
But then when we start to find out what's going on, it just fucking falls apart. Which was disappointing, because I actually had a little bit of higher hopes as the film started. But look, that's it for me. All right, fresh segment. We're calling this segment, Is It Better Than We Thought? Okay? Now, we're going to pick a film that we've previously reviewed, and we're going to give we've rewatched it, and we're going to do a sort of capsule reappraisal of whether the movie's better than we initially scored it. Now, the film we're going to cover is 1981's rural slasher Madman. Now, in the initial time we did it, Jared, I gave it half a star.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you dished out a 1 star.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right.
The film. Now, we have both reviewed this film again. And we'll give you just 5 or 10 minutes of talk about how we saw it on the second occasion. Now, I've gone ahead and gone very briefly into pros and cons with my stuff.
Yeah, I didn't go that far, but I did. Yeah, I mentioned I've got a couple of things to talk about, I guess.
Look, first things first. Max, the camp guy, the guy who's telling the story at the campground. He looks fucking suspiciously like Mars.
I was about to say the same thing. I feel like that he seemed to be like Mars's kind of well-educated, silver spoon-fed brother.
Yeah, they looked identical.
Separated at birth.
I know, it was kind of, especially in the firelight.
Yeah.
So that could have been the end twist, Jared. It could have been that there was no Mars. It was actually Max.
Madman Max. I think that would have been...
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been kind of funny. He is an interesting... Like, he's funny to watch, but only because, again, the dialogue and everything is ridiculous. I mean, this bloke's running a summer camp, and it takes one of the counsellors to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't tell these stories to the kids. And he kind of goes, I hadn't considered that. And I'm just like... Had you? You run a camp for kids, for gifted children. You
had not considered telling a story, not a fucking story, a local legend about a bloke who chopped up his children and then was hung to a group of kids aged between about 10 and 15.
Yeah.
What are you fucking on? Jesus.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I think it was pretty... I don't know. I think he's just a product of what I felt was just the people that put it together. I don't think they bothered with writing anything other than the kills.
No, I don't think so. Look, as Joe Bob wisely pointed out, because he has done this film,
yep,
as part of his thing, and I actually went back and watched just Joe Bob talk about it, so not in conjunction with watching the film. As he pointed out, these guys, they didn't know anything. There was no rules for the final girl. There was no template for slasher films at that time.
Yeah.
The movie was being made not long after Friday the 13th had been released.
Yeah, that's right.
So, ultimately, there was nothing to stick to.
No, it was nothing to stick to in that regard, but I mean, just in general, there's something to stick to about a bloody story, and this, like every character just fucking meanders through the film.
Yeah. Yeah, no one has an arc unless you count TP telling his girlfriend she's a pain in the ass or something down by the fire, then apologising at dinner in front of everyone. You fucking dildo. In front of her, you wanker. And then off they go to the hot tub, which there is no worse sex scene in any slasher film.
No,
it is the worst sex scene ever.
It's right down there. Absolutely.
The thing that always makes me laugh is they do the whole, they're circling each other and you got that music in the background and you see TP's bare ass and all that shit. And then Madman comes wandering out of the woods. And this is one of my least favourite things about Madman. All he ever does is go,
yeah. As I said to you, there was a couple of moments that could have come out and been quite suspenseful. We could have done a little bit of kind of Michael Myers type work. But every time Madman's around, you hear the it's just like, no, I don't think that worked.
It sucks the life out of it.
Yeah, it does. One thing I should give it a little bit of credit for, I think I said previously when we watched it, I kind of like the design of what Madman Mars looks like. I think there's a little bit of Texas Chainsaw. There's a little bit of what we sort of see later in Hills Have Eyes. And I didn't mind that so much. But the effects and the makeup are a little bit shaky, like when you see his hands and stuff and you can see, like there's shots of his face where you can just see it's just like bits of rubber and shit like that.
Yeah.
So that didn't turn out so well. And I will give it a little bit of credit for a handful of the kills. A couple of the kills are probably better than I recall, but yeah. I can't find too many more pros.
A couple of the kills are all right. I actually think the shot of him in the tree is quite creepy.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And the house that he lives in when Richie, who biggest arsehole in the film, wanders around it in the dark, it actually has a creepy vibe. It has a sort of a Texas Chainsaw sort of vibe. It's all broken down and rotted, and I think that's kind of works. The problems are the acting is just fucking shocking.
Yeah. Yep.
The acting's awful, and I don't think these guys were seasoned.
No,
but it turned out all of them were using pseudonyms.
Yeah, that's right.
Holy shit! There's no character development, so we don't really get to know anyone.
There's not even anyone that's interesting. I mean, even if you're not going to have any development, I keep coming back to Demon. I mean, there's no arc to Demon. He's in Friday the 13th Part 5 for about 5 minutes, but it's just watchable. It's just fun, and there's just none of the characters here that are like this.
I don't know. There's an arc to Demon, isn't there, Jared?
What?
He's loving life, eating
got the
fucking
shits.
everything. Suddenly he's got a case of the trots.
That's right.
And he gets killed.
Yeah, he gets a bit cranky. He gets a bit cranky when he's on the toilet, as we find out. But
yeah, well, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
Well, stop eating fucking 5-day-old egg rolls and you'll be all right. You haven't even refrigerated those things.
According to Demon, you don't have to.
No, that's right. Enchiladas, good anytime. But I think, yeah, there's just, it's not scary, and I think part of it is Madman constantly being, we're constantly tipped off to his presence. I don't know how he creeps up on anyone. How anybody doesn't know he's there.
Yeah, exactly. They have all these sequences where there's one in particular that I told you about that I thought would have been really good and was actually fairly competently shot. And it is a shot of one of the counsellors walking in the centre of the cabins, and the camera's way back behind the cabins, so she's in the foreground. So she's in the background. In the foreground is Madman, but he's in shadow.
Yeah.
He's moving with her. And I thought, that's a fucking really good shot. But then all I hear is... I'm like, holy shit. Like, as if you don't hear the fucking bloke.
Yeah.
Look left. There he is.
Yeah. Who's making that strange noise? It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of time for it. It's not all that scary. It's not all that memorable. As you said, it's got some of the worst examples of the hot tub scene. That's what we're going with for the TNA, or what we're supposed to be going with. Then we get the woman hiding in the fridge. I mean, Jesus, like. As Joe Bob said, I believe he said there's stupid and then there's slasher stupid. Like, it's just.
I like the fact that she gets her fucking head blown off with a shotgun.
Oh yeah, that was kind of. Again, it was a Maximum Overdrive steamroller moment. I burst out laughing again. I couldn't help it, but yeah.
There was one other moment for me that I chuckled heavily, is when I don't even know who these characters was. He was sporting a bit of a mustache and his missus is with him, right? I think it might have been the one who got in the fridge. And they get in the car and they turn the ignition, and it's after that girl's had her head cut off in the car. Like, she's had her head cut off by the bonnet.
Mm.
And all you hear is, as he turns the ignition, like, flesh or something getting rotated.
Yeah.
So he gets out, he opens the bonnet, and he goes, "Oh shit!" And the other girl goes, "What is it?" And he goes, "Don't come up here." Then he fucks off to get something. She gets out, runs over, sees the head, bursts into screams. He comes back with a towel or something, and then he picks the head up and just fucking tosses it in the bushes.
Yeah, yeah. And when he made that noise, she said, "What is it?" I thought he was about to say, "Oh, I just had a bad enchilada." That's what it looked like from his reaction.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I'm saying, look, we're walking back. Something under there is not good. And I don't want to have a look.
Yeah.
Okay, look. What would you give it?
I think, look.
What's your reappraisal score?
I'm unmoved. I think
You're unmoved.
we got to stop doing this. As I said, I had the discussion with you. I think this is about the fifth time.
We need to do more of it, Jared.
I think this is about the fifth time I've seen Mad Men, and I don't like the movie in the least. Yet, as we discussed, movies like Intruder and The Burning that we do like, I've watched Mad Men more. Why is that?
I know. I don't know. Glutton for punishment, perhaps?
Possibly.
I am also unmoved. It's garnered a reputation over the years that it is undeserved.
Yeah.
It is not a good movie.
I mean, I couldn't stop laughing at the end. Obviously, like one of the things I like about Joe Bob is he takes the piss when required, but he also does it lovingly and gives the movies their due. But at the he had this little section for a couple of minutes where he kind of played his hand a little bit and said, you know, when you ask people why they like Mad Men, they keep telling you it's the poster or the video cover. Oh, but Joe Bob, it's got a great poster. He's like, yeah, but the poster gets you in to watch the film. Now that you've watched the film, why do you like Mad Men?
That's correct. That is 100% correct. And yeah, I'm unmoved on half a star. And you're still unmoved on 1 star. Unfortunately, a reappraisal of Mad Men has come out with exactly what I anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get any better.
No, I don't think
unfortunate, but that is our new segment. We'll roll that out on occasion. Pick a few of our low-scoring films and see how they play out. But let's take a break, and here's the trailer for 2020's Come Play.
This is Larry. He just wants a friend.
How's his communication been going?
Poor guy still doesn't have any friends. The answer is 8. How come Oliver still gets to use his phone in class? He's autistic, dude. I just want to be your friend. Something in house.
There's nobody but your mom and your dad.
Do you know how your nightmares aren't real? Neither are ghosts or ghouls.
What are you staring at? Hey! What's this? This is Larry. He isn't from the world you know. Larry just wants a friend. Maybe we should stop breeding. Will you be Larry's friend? He just wants a friend.
Hello? This thing wants our son.
He just wants a friend.
Stay away from my son! Did you turn it on?
Finish the story.
He just wants a friend. A friend. A friend. A friend.
Come Play from 2020. Written and directed by Jacob Chase. This is actually his first feature film, and it's based on a short film he did. It's produced by Alex Heineman, who produced Non-Stop, and Andrew Rona, who produced The Losers. It stars Ajay Robertson as Oliver, Gilliam Jacobs as Sarah, John Gallagher Jr. as Marty, and Winslow Fegley as Byron. I couldn't find any budget information or trivia for this film, and it has been released in the US and has grossed $13 million. Alright, Jared, your thoughts on Come Play?
Yeah, so normally these sort of kind of, I don't know, I guess you could put it in the ghost story sort of category or that sort of thing. I find them to be a little bit hit and miss. Like, I don't find too much middle ground. I either find them to be really good or sort of a little bit lacking. I was pleasantly surprised. I think it was, as you mentioned, you can see some influences from other things. For example, like when I saw some of the storybook elements, for example, there was a little bit of a Babadook vibe to that sort of thing. But I was actually really impressed early on with some of the scares, a couple of the jump scares and the sense of kind of the spooky vibe that they're trying to establish. I felt that was pretty solid for the most part. Good little cast of actors, some very likeable faces that we've seen around. Obviously, we've got the girl that played C. Berman in the Fear Street flicks. We've got the father who I've been pretty happy to see him ever since I saw him in 10 Cloverfield Lane. So I think that certainly helps. It probably towards the end, I felt like there was a stretch where I felt like it lost a little bit of steam, didn't quite hold me throughout. But I believe you're in the same boat here, I was pretty happy with how it ended. I felt the ending pulled some kind of emotional moments out, and again, probably did fairly well with the scares and the tone that it was going for. So yeah, I'd be definitely happy to see more from this fella. What was his name? Jacob Chase. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he continues on, and yeah, I'd be happy to see something more from him. So I think I ended up at a 3.
Okay. Look, I found it to be quite stylish, and it uses some neat tricks to kind of build upon a story that I thought was quite interesting. It is derivative in places. It reminded me in parts of something like Lights Out. And there are some silly decisions made at points in the film. But overall, it kind of works quite well. And like you, yes, the ending has a poignancy to it that I was really happy with, and I felt was overall really, really well done. So I actually went for a 3.5. I think overall really well directed, pretty solid horror thriller, and I think from the perspective of Jacob Chase as a director, I think he does some really good things here. So yeah, I could certainly see him being someone to keep an eye on in the future. Now look, obviously this film has yet to be released in certain territories, including Australia. So we are going to keep this spoiler-free as we possibly can. So we're going to have to avoid certain parts of it, but, we'll do our best to sort of give the best pros and cons we possibly can. To start with the likes, Jared, I think the idea of befriending the boy through the devices and all that kind of stuff was a solid setup for something like this.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some places to go with that, and I think, yeah, as a setup, it wasn't such a bad idea. I mean, early on, there was a couple of times where some of the things that they were doing to give you the sense that it was happening through the devices, I didn't like so much, but they kind of grew on me as it went, and I feel like, yeah, that setup in general is definitely got some places to go and is definitely a place to look at. And I think they touch on them pretty briefly, but they touch on a few angles. They don't go super deep with it. It's really focused more on the scares and the ghost story vibe to it. But yeah, I too thought that was a really, really neat little idea.
Yeah, and I also think having a protagonist who's autistic was another different angle.
Yeah, well, it gave, especially the fact that he was non-verbal, it really worked well to set up some of the story points. The way that he was communicating with the devices allowed it to bring some really creepy moments in through the communication back and forth. And it's touching on, this isolation that these sort of things can cause for people that are in that situation. So again, I was happy to see that, and I was happy to see the time spent on that to really work out what I felt was a pretty solid rendition of the character.
Yes, agreed. The use of the gadgets, because he was non-verbal, we had a lot of technological things to use. And I felt they were used primarily pretty well with regards to how they were used in conjunction with Larry being there and being able to see Larry.
I think, as you said, there's elements of it that we've seen before, particular things with filters on the screen and bits and pieces, but they were still done fairly well. Like, even when you're expecting them, they still were satisfying. So I actually thought that was a real strength. Some of those little scares that came through, as you said, I think it's pretty well directed, because especially if you know or you have a sense of what's coming and it still works out for you, then that's a pretty good sign.
Yes, especially when it comes to jump scares and things like that. Timing's a key, whether or not you're going to see it coming, when are you going to see it. I mean, they use things like the iPad. They use the talking phone that he has. Mm-hmm. They use that rangefinder.
Yep.
Which you see early on and then sort of comes back in, which I thought was a really, really cool sequence involving the rangefinder.
Yeah.
That worked out really well.
Well, there was a couple of sequences. One of my big likes was the way that they used that parking, the parking space in general. There was a couple of scenes there that were very effective.
Oh, yeah, there's one in particular involving the newspapers.
Yes.
Flying around outside. That was really cool.
Yeah, excellent. I really liked that.
I didn't see that coming at all, and then I just look in the background. I'm like, hey.
Yep.
So, some surprises, which for blokes like us who have sat through a lot of this stuff, that's when I know I'm pretty impressed with a film like this, when you can grab me with a few of those things.
Yeah.
Because usually we've seen all this.
Yep.
We've seen all the Conjurings and the Lights Outs and all these type of movies. You feel like there's nothing they can do to get you. But yet, in this case, he got me several times.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it coming, and the way it was presented was in that perfect mixture of you shouldn't see it, and then you do in the background. And you're like, oh God, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's a strength for over the first half of the movie, especially.
Yes, definitely.
I like the family dynamic. I know, speaking of, we were talking about things that we've seen before, the relationship between the parents and the motivation of, doing anything for your kids or whatever. We've seen that a lot, but, having Gillian Jacobs and John Gallagher Jr. as the parents, as I said, two actors that I'm pretty happy to see. I thought they both did a fairly good job. And the young fella, I'm not sure his name, Azzy Robertson, I think it is.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think they worked out pretty well together.
Yeah, look, and it's pretty well acted.
Mm.
Pretty well directed. It's certainly not a big budget film, but it's got a modest amount of money behind it, and I think it's used in a very effective manner, and squeezes the best out of everything it's putting on the screen. I actually like the look of Larry.
Yeah, especially the imagery they use in some of the storybooks. The little storybook that he's putting out there. I thought that was really good. A couple of bits where the effects, when you see it a lot.
Towards the end, yes, because it's overseen.
Yeah, a couple of the sequences, it looked like it was pretty clear that there was computer effects being used. But overall, I think it was fairly well handled. The majority of the film, it's fairly well handled. And, like you said, the design is pretty creepy. There's definitely things that you can see, a little bit of Slender Man type look to it. But I was pretty happy with it as well.
But they actually it's directed in a way that, for the most part, it's kept out of the shots.
Mm.
You see fleeting glimpses of it, or you see small touches. You see its back.
Yeah.
Or you see a hand. You don't see it in full until right near the end. And look, it's not as effective then.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they keep it out of the light, and they kind of shoot around the edges of it, and I think that actually works really well.
Mm.
And I did like the way Larry kind of starts trying to tease the boy into being a friend, but then when that doesn't automatically happen, he starts to resort to nastier and nastier things.
Yeah.
He starts saying things in the book that aren't nice.
Yeah, and
he starts off with, I just want a friend.
Look, there's definitely some real world parallels that are fairly scary just to think about there.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think that stuff works fairly well in general, knowing that they are paralleling with stuff, talking about some of the dangers of technology and whatnot. But it was just one of those sort of creepy parts, especially when the mother is becoming aware of it and it's being made clear to her that his intentions are pretty creepy, pretty scary.
Yeah, totally. This is interesting because I got a dislike for the way, not necessarily the way this is handled, but it's kind of a little bit over the top for my liking. But I do like the sequence, how he kind of reconnects with the young boy that is kind of bullying him.
Yeah, I actually really like that. I mean, the sequence where they come together in a house is one of the better parts of the movie. Yeah,
it's a really good sequence.
Yeah, excellent sequence. Yeah. It was not a bad little approach that you saw initially. You were just thinking, oh, right, we're going to have the classic sort of bully character and whatever, but then they start to work through that and show that, no, there's actually more to it, that it's gone both ways.
Yes.
Which was I thought that was a nice relationship, a nice bit of work to build those two characters together.
It humanises him.
Yeah.
It humanises the bully character and gives us something to latch onto there because we find out more of the story as it unpacks as to why they were no longer friends, and you kind of get all that and you kind of understand it.
Yeah.
You sort of get an understanding of where it was going, and it kind of humanises him, and they bring him back, the two of them back together. And again, it plays into the whole storyline as a whole, but I thought that was a nice sequence where he comes up to him and talks to him at school, and then eventually just sits down with him and
Yeah, and sort of
And they
source
start
through it.
watching SpongeBob together.
Yeah, I like that. I actually like the use of SpongeBob throughout to kind of put some of his feelings out there, or to kind of, play it off against what's been going on with Larry. I thought that was actually quite good.
Yeah. Agreed. They use it several times. And it works well on most occasions. There's a sequence where we kind of see how Larry kind of communicates near the end through the television, which I thought was a really nice touch, using the TV channels.
Yeah, that was sort of, it was, again, we've seen that sort of stuff with something like Bumblebee in the Transformers movies.
Yes.
But again, pretty well used. It was fairly creepy that, picking the sound bites that they do and piecing them together the way that they do does lend it this tone of, it's really kind of eerie when you're listening to it.
Yeah. For some reason, it kept making me think of the ransom note in Die Hard 4 with all the presidents. They splice together all the presidents talking.
Yeah.
And delivering a ransom note, which, again, in that film, it was really well done. And it's done exactly the same way here, but using TV channels. And I thought a really effective way, because Larry had he'd sort of started to come to the fore by that point. So we were getting more from him.
Yeah.
And that was a good way to kind of mix up his communication. Again, I thought a really cool idea.
Yeah, definitely.
My last couple of likes are obviously with regards to the ending. I'm basically just going to say I think the ending is a real winner.
What happened throughout the ending sort of pulled it from being what I was, as I said, I thought we felt like we were running out of steam, and then the ending sort of pulled it back on its feet a little bit for me.
Yeah, and circled everything back. That's the part. That's what I liked about it the most. Is it kind of closed some loops, and I think it did it in a really, 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 really good way. So, I mean, unfortunately, I can't go into it any further. So, as to say, it's a real like for me.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it.
Did you have any other likes?
No, I
you wanted
think
to raise,
we
mate?
pretty much covered them. Obviously, as we said, we want to sort of work around a little bit without going into it too much for the people that haven't been able to catch it yet.
Okay, dislikes. I think that the ending brings a lot together, but early on, and maybe it's just that the ideas flesh out over time, but early on, I felt like there was some really solid set pieces, but the connective tissue didn't seem to be really there.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it was working more on getting those jump scares together, and perhaps that's why it feels like it loses a bit of steam towards the end, because we're trying to catch up some ground in that regard. But I would agree there that they are, you're kind of satisfied with what's going on with the jump scares, but as you said, it leaves a little bit of what's going on around it out.
Yeah, and it's not bad, it's just that it feels like little vignettes.
Yeah.
We want to use this for a scare. We know how to settle that up. We know this, we want to use this as well. We've got 3 or 4 of them in a row, but now how do we connect all this? So it looked a little bit like that. The connective tissue wasn't there. But then as the second half of the movie kicks in, you get a bit of that exposition and that fallback, and you kind of connect it all up, which works. But again, the early phases, I'm thinking these set pieces are excellent, but I really don't know much about anything.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on. I don't know a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a minor thing, but it was there for me. Again, I said before, the bullying kids, like their opening salvo is just so mean.
Yeah, it's a little bit over the top.
It's over the top mean. And maybe I'm wrong, mate. I don't have young children. And maybe this kind of shit goes on.
Yeah, so
But
I mean,
it just seemed like too much.
Obviously I have my own children, and I work in a field where you get to observe children and whatnot. I think it's that sort of stuff does happen. I would think, there are some people that are a little bit mean-spirited in that regard at that age, but I think the thing for me is like you've roping in a bunch of people to do something to that level maybe feels a little bit too far.
Yeah. There could have been better ways, but I think what they were doing was setting up the whole situation where the mother talks with the therapist.
Yeah.
Later. And so they're setting all that up. The poor kid lost his phone and then he was just beside himself. He didn't know where he was. So I appreciate. I kind of get the reasoning for the situation that occurs, but I felt it was just it felt too mean.
Yeah, somewhat. I certainly agree with you on parts of that, especially when we, as you said, we mentioned that we're coming back to them later on.
Yeah, and although that humanises the little boy, who's the sort of the ringleader, there's still a little bit of a nasty taste there.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
If it have cut back a little bit on that, it would have been easier to... You wouldn't still have been thinking about it, connecting that to it.
No.
Now, the whole idea that there's a couple of little things here, sort of decision-making for me.
Yeah.
And again, it's all a product of the plot, so I understand why it's there, but, you've got a young boy, he needs to make friends, you bring round the 3 kids who bullied him, and there's information about a particular incident that went on.
Yeah.
That kind of split. They're not getting an invite to my place.
Yeah, well, I was a bit the same, but it makes more sense when you find out what's going on later, but yeah, like you said, there was a little bit there where it's sort of, hang on a minute.
You don't invite these kids round.
No.
I understand that they used to be close, and there's obviously a situation there that unfolds and you find out about. But, their last interaction was the young boy left him out in the fucking wilderness.
Yeah.
What, does no one know about that? That's how it seemed. No one knows about that.
Yeah, it seemed like that's where it was going to me, like with the non-verbal angle that he hadn't communicated that.
Yes.
Because his mother seemed unaware that's why he'd lost his phone.
Yeah.
Here's a tip, Mum. Find my iPad on the fucking...
Find my iPhone, on the thing.
On the thing.
But also, the way the character was set up, I kind of felt like he would tell his mum.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're probably right there. It just that felt a little bit unnatural.
Yeah. A little bit contrived, a little bit sort of plot devicey.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I understand why it was there.
Yep.
It just was maybe a little bit clunkily handled.
Yeah, possibly.
That might be more the conversation to it.
Mm. There's a decision regarding devices that the dad makes later on when he's got some fairly hefty information about it that I'm questioning as well. But, a couple of little things like that.
Yeah, look, my last dislike was the way they come to the knowledge of it, the parents. I liked the way it was done using the drawings, but they seem to jump to it pretty fast.
Yeah.
I'm not coming to those conclusions.
No, probably not.
That quickly.
No.
I probably need a little bit of cajoling.
Yeah.
Over the fact that you're telling me there's a fucking monster in the devices.
Cajoling? Fuck, I need you to tell me point blank, and I still probably don't. I still probably miss portions of it. Like, I still.
And I know that the father had a run-in with Larry.
Yeah.
But still, I'm putting that down to fucking, I'm tired or something. It's not within this world, so I'm not going to just dive on it and say, yeah.
Yeah,
agree.
it did feel like it came together pretty quickly in that sense. And it did, as you said, they had to have their own experience, which did happen. But then, yeah, they both very quickly go straight to that.
Yeah, like they jump to it quickly and then immediately kind of get on side. Whereas I would have felt maybe there might have been a few opportunities where he tried to explain.
Yeah, probably. And I also had a slight issue with what I felt it was a little bit of inconsistency about what Larry could and couldn't do at certain points. Like it feels like there's supposed to be a reach that he has, but it's limited, but it doesn't seem to be limited. And then as they sort of continue on, he basically, they, as you said, they put it together pretty quickly and find out why he can do what he can do, but there's still things that they don't address. And so there was a little bit of problems around that, which probably lines up with what you're saying about some of the decisions that are made in general. Yeah. A little bit of, they didn't ruin the experience for me, but a couple of times I was kind of like, hang on, why don't we do this or why don't we do that? Like it seems pretty plain.
Yes, agreed. Well, did you have any other dislikes?
No, I mentioned the effects, like when you see the creature a couple of times pretty clearly, it's not all that well done, I don't feel, but like you mentioned, they try to avoid that as much as they can. I think that seems maybe it was a budget issue that they dealt with as best as they could. So again, didn't ruin things for me, just felt like perhaps we could have done, maybe even keep it even more in shadow and whatnot for longer.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't as effective when you saw it up close on a couple of occasions. So I was happy with how they handled it for the most part. But yeah, I didn't have anything else I didn't like. Pretty slim in the dislikes category, which is good. It showcased that it was a pretty solid all-round little horror thriller. All right, well, that is Come Play. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Podomatic, and all other good podcast places. Send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. We're on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia and at Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. Make sure you rate and review us on all the platforms just so we can get the word out. We're also on Instagram at Thrill Me Podcast AU. Next episode, just keep an eye on the Facebook page for details of what we're covering. But until then, take it easy and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.